Ever wonder how different the world would look if history had taken just one left turn? Like, what if I told you there were once empires so powerful, so rich, so ahead of their time, they could have ruled the world today. But instead, they were wiped out, broken down, or erased from mainstream history books like they never existed. Not because they were weak, but because their stories didn't fit the narrative. From African kingdoms that rivaled Europe in gold, to dynasties that gave the world science, art, and strategy centuries before the West. These empires weren't just great, they were global game changers. So, how did they vanish? Who buried their stories? And most importantly, what would have happened if they hadn't fallen? Because in today's video, we are diving deep into the forgotten empires that could have ruled the world today. And trust me, you've never heard history told like this. Let's take a journey to West Africa, to an empire that was once the gold standard, literally. The Mali Empire, started in the early 1200s by a leader named Sundiata Keita. Mali wasn't just about wealth buried underground. It was a kingdom that brought together many tribes, built a rich culture, and became a hub of knowledge and faith. Islam wasn't just a religion here, it shaped their entire way of life. Take Mansa, for example, the richest man in history. His pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324 wasn't just a spiritual journey, it was a global power move. Now, Timbuktu, the heart of Mali, wasn't just some dusty town. It was like the Harvard or Oxford of its time. People came from all over to study religion, science, law, and history. The city had thousands of handwritten books before many parts of Europe even had universities. But here's where it gets complicated. Mali's power didn't last forever. Inside the empire, fights for control started to break things apart. And then came the Songhai Empire, another powerful kingdom nearby, that eventually took over much of Mali's land. Think of it like the rival team that slowly took your crown. On top of that, Europeans started exploring sea routes around Africa, which made the old land trade routes Mali depended on less important. As trade shifted to ships, Mali's influence and wealth faded. Later, when colonizers arrived, they often ignored Mali's incredible history, focusing instead on their own stories. So much was lost or hidden. But imagine, if Mali had stayed strong, Africa might be leading the world today in wealth, knowledge, and culture. This is why Mali's story isn't just history. It's a reminder of what could have been and what still can be remembered. Now that we've seen how gold once flowed through Africa like water, let's shift our focus east, to a place where not just gold, but ideas, books, and brilliance became the true currency. Let's head east now, towards Baghdad, a city that, once upon a time, wasn't just famous for stories like Aladdin. It was real, powerful, and so far ahead of its time, it made the rest of the world look like it was playing catch-up. We are talking about the Abbasid Empire. The Abbasid Empire rose in 750 CE after overthrowing the Umayyads. And when they did, they didn't just change leadership, they sparked a revolution in thought. Baghdad became the capital in 762 CE. And trust me, this wasn't just any city. It was the Google, Harvard, and NASA of its era, all rolled into one. They built something called the Beit al-Hikmah, House of Wisdom. Basically, the world's first mega research center. Imagine scholars from Persia, India, Greece, Rome, all gathered in one place, translating, learning, inventing. That's where algebra was born. Yes, the same math that gives you a headache in school. Thanks to Al-Khwarizmi. And medicine? They had hospitals that were miles ahead of anything in medieval Europe, with wards, female doctors, and even medical licenses. While Europe was still dealing with plagues and bleeding people with leeches, The Abbasids were busy writing surgical manuals and building astronomical tools. And no, it wasn't just Muslims. Christians, Jews, Persians, Africans all worked under one empire, focused on knowledge and progress. But, like most great stories, this one has its fall. Internal corruption, power struggles, and weak leadership began to rot the empire from inside. Then came the Seljuks, and finally the Mongols in 1258. They stormed Baghdad, burned libraries, destroyed centuries of knowledge, and left behind ashes. That day, the world didn't just lose a city, it lost a future. Imagine if the Abbasid Empire had survived. We might be living in a world where Arabic is the global language of science and technology, where the Renaissance started in Baghdad, not Europe. After Africa's golden empire and the Islamic world's age of brilliance, let's now move to the east, to a land where elegance met innovation, where tea was more than just a drink, and art, science, and money took forms the world had never seen before. Let's talk about the Song Dynasty of China, one of the most advanced civilizations in human history, but one that's hardly ever talked about. The Song ruled from 960 to 1279 CE, and in that time, they did things that would shock most people today. For example, did you know that the world's first paper money was introduced by them? Centuries before Europe even dreamed of banks, the Chinese were printing currency called jiaozi and using it in massive, vibrant markets across cities like Kaifeng and Hangzhou. The economy was booming. They introduced new farming tools and fast ripening rice, which doubled their food production and helped their population grow from 90 million to over 200 million. That's not just growth, that's transformation. But this wasn't just about money and food. Religion and philosophy flourished too. The rulers followed Neo-Confucianism, but Buddhism and Taoism were deeply respected. In fact, Emperor Taizu printed the entire Tripitaka, a major Buddhist text, in the year 983. That's like publishing a full holy library before most of the world even had printing presses. Culturally, the Song dynasty was unmatched. They created breathtaking landscape paintings, delicate porcelain like Rouware, and refined CE poetry. They also developed movable type printing long before Gutenberg's press in Europe. And the tech? It was way ahead of its time. They built gunpowder weapons, compasses, and even mechanical clock towers. They had the world's first standing navy, not just for war, but for protecting trade routes and connecting distant cities. Life in the Song dynasty was full of festivals, tea houses, music, theater, even board games. It wasn't just a kingdom, it was a rich, complex civilization. So, what went wrong? Corruption crept in, leadership became weak. Their military wasn't ready for the enemies at their doorstep. First, they lost the northern region to a group called the Jurchen Jin, and later, in 1279, the Mongols arrived and finished what was left. Historians say the Song had the technology to defend themselves, rockets, gunpowder, even chemical weapons. But poor strategy and divided leadership cost them everything. And just like that, the libraries were burned, the records lost, and one of history's most brilliant empires was gone. What if they had survived? Some believe the Song could have explored the world before Europe, industrialized centuries earlier, and changed the course of global power forever. But instead, they became another forgotten chapter. Now let's come back to our own land, the Indian subcontinent, the land of rivers, colors, languages, and once unimaginable power. Because one empire ruled this land not just with force, but with art, faith, invention, and culture all at once, the Mughal Empire. From the early 1520s to the mid 1850s, this empire wasn't just a dynasty, it was a civilization. The Indian subcontinent was producing 24.5% of the world's manufacturing output up until 1750. It gave us cities, languages, architecture, and systems we still live with today. Imagine an empire that blended Islamic and Persian traditions with local Indian roots, creating something completely new and beautiful. Courtrooms spoke Persian, bazaars spoke Urdu, and people from every background contributed to this vast golden age. Under rulers like Babur, Akbar, Shah Jahan, even Aurangzeb, the empire stretched across nearly the entire subcontinent. Their legacy? Not just in palaces and forts, but in tax reforms, gunpowder technology, and even rockets built long before they were common in Europe. In fact, the hookah was invented during Akbar's rule. They even pioneered roller mills for sugar. And of course, the architecture, the Taj Mahal, Badshahi Mosque, Shalimar Gardens, not just buildings, but symbols of love, art, and power. Their double domes, Charbagh garden layouts, and miniature paintings influenced even European art. But the Mughal story also reminds us how even the greatest can fall. After Aurangzeb's death in 1707, the empire began to fracture. Heavy taxes, religious tension, and endless wars drained the treasury and exhausted the people. Regional powers like the Marathas, Sikhs, and Rajputs rose. Then came Nadir Shah, Abdali, and finally the British East India Company. By 1857, after the failed revolt, the last Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar, was exiled. That was the end of the road. And then, the British rewrote the story. They downplayed Mughal achievements, erased their scientific and administrative innovations, and made it seem like everything great came from Europe. But what if the Mughal Empire had survived? What if there had been a smooth succession after Aurangzeb? What if tolerance, invention, and unity had continued? Some historians believe India could have industrialized early, stayed wealthy, and maybe avoided colonization altogether. A stronger Mughal Empire might have changed the map of South Asia, maybe even prevented the partition, and rewritten the fate of Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. Who knows? But one thing is clear. This wasn't just an empire, it was a missed future. And finally, let's talk about the empire that stood at the crossroads of East and West, an empire so vast, so powerful, and so influential that for over 600 years it held together lands, cultures, and religions that today exist as separate countries, separate ideologies. Yes, we are talking about the Ottoman Empire, founded around 1299 with its heart in Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul. The Ottomans weren't just warriors, they were builders of systems. They governed Muslims, Christians, and Jews under one roof, using the millet system, a way that allowed different religious communities to manage their own laws and customs while still being part of the empire. Their language? A beautiful fusion called Ottoman Turkish, written in Perso-Arabic script filled with Persian and Arabic words. But their newspapers? Printed in Greek, Armenian, Arabic, and even French, proof that this empire didn't silence voices, it amplified them. In science, they made their mark too. In 1577, Taqi al-Din built one of the most advanced observatories of its time in Constantinople. He created accurate star charts, decimal clocks, and even designs for mechanical inventions far ahead of their time. And yes, they were testing Morse code in 1847, while parts of Europe were still stuck in feudal systems. And remember paper money? While the Song Dynasty invented it first, it was the Ottomans who reintroduced it centuries later during the Tanzimat reforms, a time when the empire pushed for modernization, building postal systems, schools, and legal codes that rivaled Europe. Culturally, their calligraphy, miniature paintings, jewelry, textiles, and architecture like the Blue Mosque and Topkapi Palace blended Byzantine grandeur with Islamic design. unmatched in beauty and balance. But like many great empires, they fell victim to corruption, nationalist uprisings, European manipulation, and eventually the fallout of World War I. In 1922, the Ottoman Empire came to an end. What followed was a rewriting of history, one that often erased Ottoman contributions and painted the East as backward, justifying colonial ambitions. But what if they had industrialized sooner, built stronger armies, reformed quicker? Historians say the Ottomans could have resisted colonialism, preserved their borders, and possibly created a different modern Middle East. It's time for FactsSay Confidence Score. We've talked about Mali's wealth, Abbasid wisdom, song innovation, Mughal brilliance, and now Ottoman legacy. These were just 5 empires we could fit into today's video. But honestly, there are so many more that deserve to be remembered. The Ayyubids, the Khmer Empire, the Moors in Spain, Granada, even the Roman Empire in a different light. Each one had a unique legacy, a what if that could have changed everything. History didn't forget them by accident. Sometimes it was erased, sometimes rewritten. But it's up to us to ask, what other forgotten empire do you think had the power to shape the world today, if only it had lasted a little longer? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your take. And with that, see you in the next one.